This is Shiting welcoming you to Backstage, the life behind the music. This is an online series of conversations with pianists, an exploration of their remarkable artistic lives as performers, teachers, and advocates for music. Through talking, I hope to shed some light on their process, to get a glimpse into some of their music making, the real work that takes place before they or their students step out onto the stage. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I think more than most musicians, you perform multimedia recitals. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your attraction to multimedia recitals. How did it start, and why does it continue to fascinate you?
Well, first, thank you for having me to be part of this really beautiful and very informative series. I actually personally was very inspired watching some of your interviews, so thank you for that. Um, about the multimedia programs, I mean, all pianists are all musicians. I care and think about programming for concerts to have an art kind of a unifying feel, the meaning of the program to be more than just the meaning of each piece. So that probably led to trying to add other elements, other experiences to help and enrich the feel of this one continuous event, which is the program. But also perhaps to add some other dimensions to it. Uh, I like to treat each program more or less the same way that we treat a play in a theater. And each event or each element in that play, that could be music or any other art form, has its meaning, its evolution, development, climax, and so on and so on. And the hope is that um, there is some overall artistic experience and meaning. Actually, the meaning does not need to be there explicitly. The most powerful art for me is the one that we cannot explain. If we can rationalize it, then it loses its magic. I guess that is why we love music. It affects us emotionally. But if you try to explain why and describe with words its meaning, for me at least, it loses its purpose, its magic. So I started adding using other elements, documentary footage, art films, poetry, animation, live dance, short stories, live painting, backstage music, and so on. Part of the attraction, I guess, the excitement in creating these programs is that each one is very different since they use different artistic elements. One could be inspired by some film footage, other by poetry, other by some abstract idea. So each one creates uh, uh, completely different challenges based on the different artistic elements used in the overall goal. Also, there are no established modes or rules on how to combine and uh, intertwine the different elements. So that really opens so many possibilities and makes it very exciting for me. Also, I'm quite obsessed with technology. I do all of my video, audio recording and editing. I find that very satisfying, I guess, because I'm in control over everything. Maybe I'm a control freak, who knows. And all of the developments in the field, in the tech field in the last 10, 20 years, have made the process of creating these programs much easier and much more exciting at the same time. Um, I'm, I'm not sure if this is completely related to this, but one of the reasons for me to try to create something different than a traditional concert is probably the fact that I usually don't feel very comfortable at a traditional concert.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love going to non-traditional alternative spaces for performances, but I can't completely merge myself into the experience of listening and being detached from reality in a concert hall. I'm talking as an audience, not as a performer. Uh, there's so many distractions in a concert hall. There are people around and different noises from the audience or from the hall, weird lighting and so on. And I mean, these things don't bother me if I perform, but somehow they do when I'm part of the audience. Um, music is, I don't know, music is such a personal experience, and I find it difficult to experience that surrounded by all these distractions. So maybe that also has something to do with the attempt to create something different. I think I went off the topic. You asked me how did it start, right? Uh, not, I mean, not sure. I guess it was always appealing for me to do something along these lines. In Michigan, I did my master's and my DMA there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was experimenting with different formats. I even tried to make my juries more interesting. I remember once I played a piano jury at the end of the semester, and I was playing a bunch of 20th century tangos. So I started with the Sati Perpetual Tango, which is a piece that never ends.
Yeah.
And then I went to the tangos, but I had a friend backstage with a tape recorder that kept playing the Sati piece, and he was turning the volume up between each each tango and then going down while I was playing. And of course, the piano professors thought that somebody was making noise back then, so they went and they told him to just stop doing it. Um, and also in Michigan, I think the very first time I did something, I did late scrapping with lights, with color lights, based on his color hearing. But of course, back then it was, I mean, I had to have spotlights and color gels. I had some friends that were changing the gels based on the score. And I remember one of the piano professors at the end came and said, well, next time when you do that, why don't you bring some popcorn? I found that to be funny and exciting. But, and then little by little, I started to experiment more with the new technology, and that made things much easier. But just one final thought about this. I mean, I love the power of pure music, and I don't intend for music to play a secondary role. Um, because I know that a lot of people say, well, don't you, is that fair to music? Is that fair to the composers? I just put music in some other surroundings with the hope of having a larger meaning or a larger experience. And I'm always very careful about the amount of the other elements used. Less is usually more. Mm-hmm. And of course, I would not use other elements or mediums with pieces, composers that we have a very strong established artistic parameters for. Like I wouldn't do anything with Beethoven or Brahms or Chopin or Debussy or Schoenberg. Oh, actually, I've done with Schoenberg. Anyway, that's. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I'm sure that if someone were in the audience and then they heard such a recital, they watched such a recital, it would be such a memorable experience that they would not forget for years. And I would very much like to be in the audience and then to experience that someday. And I think I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but is there any sort of message you're trying to convey to the audience through these recitals, or is it more of just an immersive experience?
Um, I think it's definitely the second one. Just experience it. We get so many messages these days. Um, I mean, I of course have my own ideas and my personal justification for all the little details, all the connections, the use of a particular element, the timing, the meaning, etc. But I also like to leave many things open to personal interpretations. Um, Everyone could take from it their own personal meaning, and even better, if something affects somebody, they feel touched by it, but are unable to rationalize it and explain it. That for me is the best achievement. Um, for example, often it happens often that after I play some of these programs, uh, some people point out to me things in the programs that I actually have never planned, like specific connections and meanings that I never thought of. So that makes me happy. It means that I left the program open enough to many different interpretations. Um, the goal overall is to have one event where each element plays some role, each one of these: film, animation, poetry, dance, song. And then somehow all these elements develop, they communicate with each other, and they bring some type of climax or a resolution. In many cases, actually, there's no resolution. The resolution, as I said, is left to the audience or to their imagination.
I guess having recitals like this really is inviting the audience to think and to feel themselves, and they are able to be more engaged in the recital and think about what it means, and then they probably would come up with something that they wouldn't thought of if they were in a conventional recital.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Hmm. And I was wondering, how has poetry and visual arts influenced your playing over the years? Because I know you incorporate a lot of poetry and artworks into your recitals. And how has those art form influenced your playing over the years?
Um, I mean, we all have different artistic influences that make us who we are. And for me, I guess literature and film influenced me more than music, except classic rock from the 70s and 80s. I still listen to the bands from that time in secret without anyone seeing me. Um, I I did not have a proper music education. I started kind of late. I didn't go to one of the specialized music schools. So uh, I was definitely much more influenced by other art forms. Let's say in literature, I mean, like with everyone else, I have had different obsessions at different times with authors and poets. Uh, Camus, Borges, Lorca, Prévert. But one of these obsessions was quite strong, and it's still going on. That's with the Argentinian author Julio Cortázar. Actually, my last large project, Music of Shadows, was inspired by Cortázar's very last text, like the 10. Um, it was written. He wrote this text right before he died. He had cancer. He knew that he was dying, and the text was never published. It was just part of a brochure for an art exhibition, and it was in Spanish, and there was French translation, but it was never translated into English. So I actually commissioned the British poet and Cortázar scholar Peter Standish, who made the first English translation for this project, Music of Shadows. And it's that was premiered last week on True Art TV, which is a London-based platform. I went on the subject and film. Yeah, I mean, also at the same time, I was very much into film. I mean, I love the experiments from the 1930s, Cocteau and Buñuel and Man Ray, the French New Wave from the 50s and 60s, Alain René, Godard, François Truffaut. Maybe that is the reason that I wanted to start filming and editing everything by myself. So that probably play also some role in the desire to make something myself, something different than play the piano, which is also great, by the way.
What is your process of creating these recitals? Do you say you're influenced by Jean Cocteau's movie? Do you then come up with the repertoire to go along with the movie to explain what the movie makes you feel? What is your process?
Yeah, it is different for each project. I mean, now that I think of it, it is rarely music that comes first. It is more often some visual, like film or image, or some literary source, poem or a short story, or some general concept idea. For example, this last week, I was reading Lorca, and I just decided to do some short project with 3 of Lorca's poems, and I thought of the music that may go well with that. I had some animation from Leslie Smacker that really, I think, worked really well, and I recorded everything. I video recorded it with still video camera that without having me on the video. It was either inside the piano or just the keyboard. And I mean, I know that when I say that music doesn't usually come first, people say, wait, so the music serves a secondary role. And well, they may be right, but I always try not to take away anything from the meaning and power of music. And also, there's so many great pianists who perform beautifully the great keyboard pieces of the repertoire. I don't have the urge to play a piece just because I love it. I know if that makes sense. I mean, I may love teaching it and listening to it, but I can live without one more performance of a great piece. I like playing through them and studying them, but I'm not that excited about actually performing them. I feel like if I were to perform some of this repertoire, I would be doing it just for myself. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I never use music that has a strong embedded meaning and association for us, like Brahms, Beethoven, Chopin. But going back to the program, I mean, it takes a long time to make a program that work and feel right. It is in a way like working on a piece of music, but probably longer since there's so many different components. You keep trying and experimenting until it feels right. It is like learning a piece of music. You can't rationally decide, oh, this phrase needs to be this way, this time it needs to be this way, this color this way, and so on. Some things just don't feel right, personal or natural, no matter how objectively true and rational they are. I hope that makes sense. And that is partly the beauty of music. We just keep changing and experimenting until it feels right, until it makes sense to us. And then, of course, we try to make all these things that we arrived at sound spontaneous and not planned. So the same approach is to these programs. Then even more here, since since this is a mix of different art forms, and there are no rules or norms of making something right or wrong. In music, there are more or less some objective rules, traditions, and established tastes that we follow. But when you mix different mediums and elements, there are no norms. So that is kind of riskier in a way to make it work, but also really liberating and exciting. So I just keep trying, keep making changes. Sometimes some really small change, like some event starting a second earlier or later, makes a difference. So I keep changing until I'm satisfied. And then I, of course, perform the program, and of course, some more ideas and more changes keep coming. And that is also part of the fun of playing these programs. Also, each venue is totally different. So you have to adjust the program to that venue, because often the screen is at a different place, or the dancer cannot do that at this place, has to go a different place. The sound is different, and so on and so on. So some of these programs I've been playing for 10 or 20 years, and um, they're quite different now than they were back then. I mean, of course, this is the same as playing a piece of music. You keep changing. Um, my, I guess nowadays, I mean, with the pandemic, I also started making some video versions made at home, because we don't have concerts now. And in one way, this is less stressful, because the element of live performance is gone. There's, there's always a chance in the live performance of some technical aspect going wrong. But now everything is recorded and planned. So in this way, that's kind of easier. But on the other, once you finish the final video editing and send it out, you're done. You can't make any more changes. There is some kind of finality that we usually don't have with live performances, because you know that there will be always more. I hope that answers
Yes.
the question.
I was just thinking that your programs are somewhat like a museum. You walk into a museum, you see all the paintings, you see photography section, you see sculptures, and you see ancient rocks, ancient gems, like walking to the Met Museum. It's
Oh, thank
all
you.
kinds of art form submerged in one place. And it's not like just a conventional recital. You walk in, you listen to piano music. It's very interesting. I think it will
Thank you so
inspire
much.
a lot of musicians to think like that. And I was wondering, do you ever work with your students? Do your students get inspired by your projects, and then do they want to start to work towards something like that?
Uh, yes, I try to encourage them to explore and do different things. And often they come up with really beautiful projects. But I have also done some things together with them, and that's been really fun and inspiring. Last year, for example, we did this Bach project, and everything was supposed to be uh, in the spirit of Bach. Everything uh, was around the number 3. So the concert was on March 3rd, 3-3. At that time, Bach was going to be 333 years old. That was last year. And the concert has 3 parts, and each part has 3 pieces, and each one piece was played on harpsichord, piano, or we also had an organ in the hall, organ continuo. And the last piece was the concerto for 3 keyboards played on these 3 keyboards. And then all of that happened inside the very last piece that Bach wrote, the triple fugue from The Art of Fugue, the triple fugue. And that was filmed in advance, played by a few string students. And it kept coming on the screen between things. And then at the end, actually, the string students were on stage playing live. It sounds a little bit hard to explain, but trust me, it was fun. I mean, even now, I teach a class called the Chamber Music Literature currently, and we have there are 5 violinists and 5 pianists in this class, and we're actually working now on a project based on Cage, John Cage. So it will be all distant playing, but we'll have the piece 5, which is for 5 people. And also each duo will play one of his melodies, and then we're gonna mix it with some other, that's still in the working stage. So, but I'm sure it will be something exciting. The students already are coming with all kinds of crazy ideas, and I just love that.
You seem to have a particular interest in contemporary music. Is it because they have less of a dominant message in the music? And then also some early music like Bach, Rameau. Are you able to manipulate these music a little easier than mainstream music?
Yeah, I mean, we are all different people, and we get moved by different things. So I think it's perfectly fine to just concentrate and explore the music that one loves and feels very personal. And we can't all be Leonardo da Vinci. Everything is so advanced and so specialized now. So I guess life is too short to be great at too many things. And you're right. I mean, I don't remember when was the last time I I performed a piece written between 1825 and 1900. I mean, I love romantic music. Well, okay, let's leave it there. I mean, I love listening and teaching romantic music, but I don't feel the urge to play it. I think I can easily live without playing the 19th century music. I'm not sure why. Maybe it just gives me less emotional satisfaction, I guess. I love the Baroque music and even late Renaissance Baroque. I'm really excited about all the possibilities that it offers. The goal is to get in the spirit of this music and make it sound authentic, but there are 1,000 different ways of doing this. Not to mention that we play an instrument that did not even exist back then. That was the time of composers, and that was the time when composer and performer was the same thing. So the composers did not leave any musical markings on the score to help us, except of course these beautiful French descriptive titles of the French Baroque music. But this nakedness of the score gives us so much freedom. We need to almost become the composer. So I'm kind of glad that they did not leave us any markings and they gave us this freedom to explore this music. The 20th century, yeah, I mean, I love early 20th century. It's time of change, time of exploration, time of revolt. I also had my Stravinsky obsession. Uh, I mean, I still find his music very satisfying. The fact that he brings out so clearly his philosophical ideas, as crazy as they are, but the fact that he brings them out and that he reaches his goal, I find this very gratifying when performing. And of course, and then I love the mid and late 20th century. Cranberry, Schnittke helps. I just find just gives me a lot of freedom. This music gives me a lot of, it just find very emotionally satisfying.
Mhm.
I'm happy that I can explain why. That means that there's some magic there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your multimedia recital and on your inspiring concept. My father is a painter too, so
Oh, okay.
when I was little, I started getting very interested in paintings, and I think I can start working on some multimedia recital thing as well. I think it's going to be very captivating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really satisfying to do something like that. I mean, I find it because in a way you just walk at some path that is completely unknown.
Mhm.
There's no like established rules. You do that, you do that. You do whatever you want.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
and
just try to make sense of it.
yeah, and then it becomes such an integrated experience.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes. And I look forward to more of your upcoming projects, and then look forward to watching more of your videos that will be coming out. I've enjoyed watching your
Oh,
videos.
actually, I have one. I mean, I have one that I'm working on now, which is will be quite different than all of the others.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's a multi-step process, but the final project will be a art installation where I won't be present there, but my performance, it's all about isolation, anonymity, and loneliness.
Hmm.
And I use the music of this early 17th century unknown for, he's known only for people who are into that, like specialists. Uh, Neapolitan composer Ascanio Maione. So my plan is to record his pieces on one of the Steinway Spirio player pianos, and then the Steinway will be playing that. So mixed with all kinds of other. I'm working with an artist at the moment on that. I mean, that would take a long time, but uh, uh, trying to explore something totally different at the
Hmm.
moment. See how that's going to turn out.
Yes. And then the artists that you work with, they are very fantastic. I watched some of the little animation. They're very
Yeah,
interesting.
really beautiful and sweet and tender
Yeah.
and I love art that says a lot with very few words.
Yes. Poets. The poets.
But yeah, that's why I love Lorca. I mean, there a little poem is 10 words, and
Yeah.
then it means so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for talking with me. I hope you stay well and look forward to your upcoming projects.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.